Welcome back to Bold and Body. This is Wesley.
Hello, motherfucker.
And I'm here with these two motherfuckers.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to both y'all.
You ain't talking to me.
Wow.
I'm talking to all
I
y'all
mean,
fools.
co-host, really?
Yeah, I'm two motherfuckers.
You really just said y'all two motherfuckers.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Who are you talking to?
Nah,
That's
that's
just rude.
that's they hating
I mean,
on me.
I know,
So it's my turn to
I
hate
know
in the
it's the end of
intro.
the season and stuff, but you ain't got no right. Come correct.
The sun's out. He don't know how to act anymore.
I'm here with my
You're
two
acting real light skin right now.
lovely,
Real light skin.
air quotes, hosts.
Hey.
Hey, it's Lena D.
Hey, whatever. It's just Wesley. I'm here.
and Maddie.
Yeah, they just here. All right. They here. All right. Anyway.
He mad.
So salty.
Yeah. All right. So we gonna get right into it. We're gonna talk about let me start this off with a story. I was a kid.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to go to school, whatever, clearly. In high school, we used to have this class. It was called economics class. But in this economics class, they really didn't go through much economics so much as like teaching you like basic life skills, like how to write a check, how to mail something in the mail. What's a 401k? What's investments? What's stocks? Like things
That's
like
dope.
that. Yeah, they used to do that in my school, and it used to
A
be
lot of
half,
schools don't do that.
and it was half the year. Like it was called economics, but it
Oh, wow.
really was like they taught a little bit.
Should have
of
just called it
economics.
life skills.
Yeah, but it was really like life skills, and I feel like they don't teach that anymore.
They don't really teach that anywhere.
They don't
Like,
teach
not
that
even in
anymore?
college.
Even when
Yeah.
I was in high school, like, I
Oh,
don't
they didn't
remember learning that.
What?
Mm-mm.
I forgot the teacher's name.
I learned that shit in the streets.
For real. I mean, we went to the same high school. I didn't even know that was offered.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
it was awful. Yeah. Yeah.
It's one thing where it's just like, I went to school in Brooklyn. Y'all went to the same school and,
And
didn't know.
I had no idea that this was a thing.
This teacher would teach like economics, but he would also teach like things like that. So that
Are
when
you sure
got
that
into
wasn't
the
like
room-
FBLA, like Future Business
Nah.
Leaders of America? Because I remember they used to do stuff like that too.
No.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
I wasn't in it because that's when I was trying to be a doctor.
I wasn't in it either
because
because I was trying to like go to vet school and I was like, nobody needs this stuff. Clearly, I was wrong.
Yeah, but he went in, taught you different things like investments, what's a bond, what's a stock, what's a mutual fund, like all that good stuff.
I
It was
learned that in college.
cool.
I learned that in college as a
Yeah.
finance major.
It was cool. Like it was like a head start to the way of the adult. So yeah. But now here we
We're
are.
just gonna call it Adulting 101,
Yeah, pretty much.
which is what we're about to
So we're
do
gonna
for
teach
you
y'all.
today.
We're gonna teach y'all how to do certain things like start budgets, for all the young millennials out there, because we also millennials, but we're like on the older side. You know what I'm saying?
Speak for yourself.
Like 85, like in
Wait,
the
what?
80s and stuff.
80s babies is what he means. Like
yeah.
born
okay.
in 85.
I was like,
We-
what does he talk about?
Speak for yourself.
84.
That's not when I was born.
89.
That's disrespectful. You don't even know how old I am.
But yeah. I feel like they don't teach those skills anymore. I remember one point, this intern came up to me. This happened like a week ago. He was like, well, how do I send something through the mail? I was like, excuse me, child? Why are you an
This
intern
is at
here?
work?
Infant, what do you mean?
Yeah, like
This was at work recently?
This was at work. This is recent.
Oh
This
my
is like,
goodness.
how do I send something through the mail? I'm like, I'm sorry. Who are you? And why are
Do you
you
mean,
interning
like,
here?
To FedEx something? Because
No. To
from the
USPS. Like, I need to go to the post office and mail something. Where do I put the addresses?
Oh
And
my
I'm over
goodness.
here like,
like on the envelope?
yes,
sir?
yep.
Oh,
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
poor baby.
I was like, that's this. Oh, you poor. I don't understand.
Go look it up on YouTube. What the fuck about this?
Yeah. But yeah.
How
like,
to address an envelope. I'm pretty sure there's a video for that.
I'm sure if there isn't, we about to make one.
Yeah.
we definitely have to make one. But yeah. So what do y'all think, guys? Like, get right into it. Starting budgets, 401ks, shit like that.
All of that.
Don't drink and drive.
We're gonna address all that. But I think like the biggest
That's hella basic.
Okay, I don't even know how we got there, but let's bring it back to what we really could talk about.
I mean, it's adulting. Don't drink while you're impaired. Don't drink while you're driving.
That's just
Basic
human
life
decency. That's a very basic. That's not
For
even
real.
adulting.
That
Yeah,
is not.
seriously. But
Yeah.
I think for what the goal that we want to address, especially because we are very fortunate to have Maddie on our show.
Hey.
And Maddie actually went through this whole and is still going through the whole home ownership process, which I think that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, there's like the preparing to become a homeowner, and then there's really being a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for people that don't even have home ownership on their radar, I think it would be great for you to tell us about like kind of how you started the process, talk about your journey to like home ownership. But I think really to highlight the importance of why we're talking about this is because you don't really get the sense that within like communities of color that there really is sometimes even like the resources or like the knowledge of how, you know, how you could actually sit down and put a plan together like step by step for yourself to actually meet those goals, right?
Absolutely.
And especially in our communities where it's like, hey, maybe our parents did have the opportunity and the savings to buy their own place, but sometimes, you know, some parents, like some of our parents don't even own like their current property. And so property is such a great way to like really lay the foundation to build wealth for your family. So whether it's wealth for yourself or
And
wealth
equity,
for
bitches.
Boy, if you don't get
wealth for your legacy. And I really think that we don't nearly talk about it enough as we should be within communities of color. So that's also another big reason why we wanted to talk about this topic. So Maddie, why don't you, we hand it over to you and you tell us about.
I got you. So financial literacy is a big thing for me. It could possibly be because I started off my career as a financial advisor and a retirement planner. So it literally was my job to know and understand it and then try to teach other people. Mm-hmm. It was a struggle because I was relatively young, like maybe a few years out of college. So most of the people that I was trying to work with, especially in terms of retirement planning, were older. And they're like, the hell do you know? And I'm like, more than you, because you're not going to be able to retire next year. How about that, Susan? I couldn't say that, but I wanted to really badly.
You were thinking it the entire time.
Really
you were
hard.
looking at her and thinking that.
Exactly. So,
and it was probably true because she probably didn't could retire the next year.
It was absolutely true. It was true for a lot of people. And it also helped me to realize just how little people really understood money and their wealth and wealth building. So I decided to buy a home. Oh, it was just always a dream. It sounds so cliche. I'm so sorry. It was all a dream. I'm sorry.
Just wanted to buy a home, you know, a warm home where
I just followed up with Biggie. Shut up. All right. Anyway, I was trying to say. So, no, but for real though, I wanted a house more than I wanted like to get married or have kids and do all of that shit. Like my focus from little was I want to have a house. I was like, I want to have a house by 30. So I had been thinking about it. How am I going to do this? Mm-hmm. So it didn't happen by 30 because I graduated at the peak of the financial crisis,
right,
with a degree in finance, and everybody was like, "Bitch, what you doing with this?" So I had no income, like significant income, to even do this. But then I had changed my goal to 32. So I think that's the first thing. It's just like, don't put yourself into a bubble when you're trying to do this. Don't say I want to do or I need to do this by this date, because life happens and you're gonna be real upset when that shit happens. And you're not able to make it. So be flexible. So I started with my budget. I looked at my budget. I looked at how much I would be able to afford based on how much my student loan payments were, based on credit card payments. That's really the only debt that I have. So I considered all of that to say, if I pay all of this stuff off in full, how much money will I have left over at my current income to afford a mortgage? A lot of people make a mistake and say, well, if I make this much money, which is not how much they're making in the moment, then I could afford this house and I'll be fine. And they get themselves into these really shitty situations where they end up getting foreclosed on.
Yeah.
So
because they're way overextended, and the banks or even like whoever you're working with isn't necessarily like you're like, it's not their fiduciary duty to make sure that you're within budget for buying like a home, and even for sometimes signing up for some of the mortgages that they recommend.
Exactly.
Oh, I got a question.
Go for it.
So you go to the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they try to offer you some bullshit loans, subprime loans, or
For the most part, they don't do that anymore.
All right. Oh, anymore.
It's not something that they're, because again, we know, like, especially 07, 08, that was what caused the bubble to burst. So that's not a common practice.
Okay.
Will banks be willing to work with you? Yes. So if a bank, like, they have their parameters and they'll say you can't afford this mortgage.
Right.
But if you get a co-signer,
Then you can.
then you can. So they'll make things that will help you to get it. But if you know, like, I could get you to co-sign for me, right, Wesley? But you're not actually going to give me money for my mortgage payment every month.
Right.
So it's all going to fall on me. On paper, it's like, oh, that's 2 incomes, 3 incomes, whatever.
Right.
You're all set. So the bank's like, I bet, because they feel covered. But for you,
You're not really covered.
you're not.
That
So
cosigner isn't actually going to pay that.
no,
You are.
They
But
just
that
help you to
cosigner's
get
responsible,
approved.
though. Like if you default on that loan, though, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But there are also
Shit.
ways for you to, like, get to take them off of your mortgage, like, within a year or so.
Oh.
So that is what a lot of people do. It's like, all right, I'll co-sign for you, but within a year, I want my name off of that.
Right.
And then 2 years later, when you foreclose, the co-sign is like, I fucking told you not to do that shit.
But doesn't that make you look good on your credit report and shit? Like
What?
when you co-sign on a loan and then you like,
As
fuck
long
that.
as they're good, as
Yeah.
long as they're in good standing, then yeah, it's a boost to your credit also.
Ooh.
But again, if it's someone where it's just like, I don't know, I'm gonna do this to help you out, but you don't want your name on somebody else's responsibility.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why I say, I stress, create your budget based on where you are right now.
All right.
Don't be like, oh, I might get married or I'm engaged now, because you might not get married. You might not have 2 sources of income. You might not get that promotion that you're thinking you're going to get in 2 months. Like, look at where you're at right now when you create
You
your
got to
budget.
be realistic about it.
Yes.
Like, it's actually what you're getting in your account.
Exactly. So I started off, I was looking at my credit score. I was looking at my credit report. So I was on Credit Karma, Equifax, TransUnion. What's the other one? Experian. Pull those reports so I know exactly what's on my report. So I can be like, this is wrong. This is right. Okay. You want to know where you stand financially. And I was a financial planner, so I'm anal about all of my financial documents. I have my tax returns from my first job. Like,
Wow.
I still have those.
You have it all filed up, your little system.
I honestly do. Some of them I was just like, okay, this has been a long time. You could like, this is from when you were a cashier living in Georgia. You're not going to need this anymore.
Yeah.
But you do want to make sure you have your financial documents available.
Okay.
Because they're going to ask for that. And especially if you're ready to go, you don't want to be the one that's holding up the process, because like, oh shoot, I don't know where my tax return is from 2015. Because they go back. Like, they're like, okay, we knew this from the last 4 years, maybe 3 years, but still, it's just like, I don't know where that shit is. Yeah. You don't want to be that person. The next thing I considered, and this is pretty basic, is where you want to live. Like, figure that out. It's one thing when you're renting, and I know we all do this when we're renting and we're looking for somewhere to live. It's just like, oh, I want to be by the train. I want to be in this neighborhood because there's like great restaurants or bars or whatever it is that you guys were looking for, like when you guys decided to move.
Lena D.
But you also have to remember this is a more permanent move.
What about Lena D?
Lena D was like, oh, I want to be near the breweries and shit.
I
Why?
never even said that. I said I
Why?
wanted to be by the train.
Why?
That's a big one.
Yeah, because commuting, like getting to places within like a reasonable amount of time.
Like the
Yep.
ferry?
That was a big one for me because I was just like, I don't drive. Can I drive? Yes, but I don't own a car. Let me be specific
Right.
before people be like, y'all New Yorkers don't have a First of all,
First of
I can
all,
drive. I do
can
not
drive.
own a car because I'm a
an
New
ex-
Yorker.
And
Like,
it's an extra expense.
Exactly.
Like, that you would also have to budget for.
Because
And
you have to
then
pay for parking and shit.
exactly. So for me, I was just like, I need somewhere that's close and has public transit accessible. But if you do have a car, then it's just like, you want to make sure that there's parking available. That whether it's a parking garage or whatever is included in the place that you're getting, if it's not a house, like if you're in a condo or something,
Yeah.
right? Do they have parking available? That's a big thing. So you want to consider stuff like that. You want to consider the demographics of the neighborhood. You do not want to be the single person or the young person living in this old ass neighborhood.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
Yeah, it's just like
Neighbors
doesn't.
be up your ass to turn
Yes.
that music down.
You want to make sure the demographics match where you're at in your life or where you're planning to be.
Or planning, I think, too, because like part of the things that some people also want to consider is like, well, if they're eventually like down the line going to get married and have kids, it's like the school district
Right.
and access to like after school programs or
All of that.
things like what's like different about the schools and stuff too.
And not just like, oh, the elementary schools. Like when I was looking at my house, I was like, I want to know how the high schools are.
Yeah.
Because maybe I move within a few years, maybe I don't. But I want to know like that if I'm going to be living here, if my kids have to go to this particular school, that it's going to be a good school.
Right.
I
'Cause
can't
it's
even get a
it's an
date, but I'm thinking
investment.
about where my kids are going to high school.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, it's like a lot of planning, but you have to, because like it's an investment. It's an investment in you and your family. And sometimes it's not that easy to get out of like the commitment of owning the home.
Exactly.
Because so much of it relies on like the economy as well. And so like if you come in with like getting the value of your house at a certain amount and then, something fucked up happens, like, the Great Recession, and then you can't really get that value of the house anymore. So then you're kind of like stuck there and you got to wait it out. But
pretty much. It's also why you want, that's the second reason why I think it was really big for you to consider where you're living. Because we all know gentrification is real. So you could get somewhere that looks kind of right now, but you notice all the development happening around you.
AKA
So it's
Bushwick.
You stupid.
I mean, I feel like at this point, Bushwick, that would have been a good example. Like Bushwick 10 years ago,
Yeah, Bushwick.
it was like,
oh my God.
never. But had you bought something then, right now, you're a fucking
set.
millionaire.
Yeah.
Like your property has made its money back like 10 times over. And then depending on where you live, especially I think it's more so in the city, that you'll always get your return versus living out in the burbs. Because most people don't want to live in the burbs. Most younger people don't want their first home to be like deep in the burbs. Yeah. I'm not going to front, like my place, I call it hood adjacent.
Hood adjacent.
Yeah. That's what I call it. Why are you laughing?
Oh my God. Why? Because like if you run 2 blocks down, like you
on some real shit. On some real.
Wait, what would be what are some of these
What's hood
factors
adjacent?
that make it
So,
hood adjacent?
we have
if
that
I
here.
walk 5, not even 5, like 3 blocks in one direction, there's a chicken shack, there's a liquor store, there's no gun store, but all of the hood staples, right?
it.
If I walk 2 blocks in the other direction, I'm in the burbs. Like
That's here.
I'm talking white picket fence, like the beautiful yards, all of that, where it's just like people are just like, "Hi, good morning," and then 2 blocks in the opposite direction, it's
it's
just like, "Who the fuck is you?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
got-
like
yeah,
I'm
we got
hood
that
adjacent,
here.
so
Yeah,
you're
I
hood
mean-
adjacent also.
Yeah, because like if you walk 2 blocks down, you're in Queensbridge, and that is not a place you want to be at late at night. I was like, Lena D was coming back. She was like, I had to take the F train. F train stops right in Queensbridge, and I'm like, hey, let me know if you alive, yo.
And I'm like, oh yeah, fine. It's cool. No, I'm just defining it for people that may not know what that is. That's why I was like, give us some examples, because some people might be questioning what is
They just gave me the side eye, like, the fuck is hood
What is
adjacent?
that?
I mean, again, I'm from Brooklyn, so I still want that city type feel,
yeah.
without having to worry about getting shot,
right.
if that makes sense.
And
Like,
I mean, in some cases too, it's like if you grew up in a neighborhood like that, it's not
It's home.
odd.
Yeah.
Like it's not odd to like be like, oh yeah, like the bodega is just like 3 blocks away.
exactly.
Or like I could just go to the bougie like little sushi restaurant that's just down the corner
Girl,
too.
can I
Like,
tell you that there's this like market that sells artisanal cheeses? Like less than a mile. Again, in the suburb direction, I could get me some bomb ass artisanal cheeses and some amazing wines. And then if I'm like, yo, I just want a four wings and fries, I could go in the other direction.
you got options. I
to
mean,
go to the Chinese food store, and I'm set. Like that's what I needed. So you have to go to the neighborhood also during the day and at night. That
Well,
was
yeah.
big for me.
Yeah, you have
So
to,
not
like, see
everybody
what it's
does
like.
that. And I've heard horror stories from people who's just like, yeah, you know, we only saw it during the day, and then at night it was a whole different world. I'm just like, yeah,
It's like, well,
dummy.
you kind of screwed yourself with that one.
Word.
It's like you didn't do all your research. You have to ask your research.
So I did all of that research. Also, like crime stats. I live alone. Safety is important to me.
Yeah, for sure.
So I looked at, okay, you know, 6 blocks away, there was an armed robbery.
What?
12 blocks away, there was a carjacking. In my head, I'm like, I don't got a car. I'm straight.
Well,
Like-
you're in New Jersey.
gonna rob
That's
me.
like known carjacking
Exactly.
city.
Fucking carjacking capital. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But
Another
Do you wanna
reason why
consider-
not to get a car.
your camera, sucker.
but those are all of the things that you want to consider. And notice, this is all the preliminary stuff.
Right.
Because this is how I did it. Everybody does it differently. I think the other thing that I had to say is this is not HGTV, guys.
HG.
Do not go into this thinking that it's going to be like one and done. You're going to see the first place and then be like, oh my God, this is perfect. Or everything's going to be locked down within 30 days. Like, no, it does not happen that way. Just temper your expectations. So that was a big thing. The next thing I did after I figured out my budget, figured out where I wanted to live, is determine the price range, which was part of like figuring out my budget, and then understanding the price range of the homes in that area that you've chosen.
Okay.
Because you could say, oh, I want to live here. I love everything about it. And then look at the houses that are on the market around there and be like, I can't afford shit. So you want to be mindful of if it's actually within your budget. After that, I looked for first-time homebuyer programs. You find them for your city, for your state, and for your county. Look it up on all 3 levels.
Okay.
Sometimes you can find them on federal, but usually the state programs are the best. The county programs, you can also get onto them.
Right.
And then depending on the city that you choose to live in. So one thing, if you're willing to live in a quote unquote urban or developing area, there's usually way more programs. Another reason why I chose to be hood adjacent. And because being and owning land in a Black neighborhood was huge to me.
Okay.
Because we always complain about gentrification, but it's like, if we don't own the property in our neighborhoods,
It just makes it
we
easier.
can't complain. Yeah,
Yeah, you're just inviting people to come into the neighborhood, and then it pushes out anybody that's ever
exactly.
lived there.
So it's just like, if you don't see the value of your own neighborhood, somebody else will, and then they're going to kick you out of your neighborhood.
Right.
So looking specifically for those first time home buyer programs for quote unquote urban neighborhoods was like, that was a no brainer for me. So those first time home buyer programs, a lot of times they'll give you grants for your down payment. They'll give you like educational sessions, like meetings and stuff, just so you can learn about the whole home buying process and all of the steps and what to expect. Most people just do it for the grants because
Well, I mean, yeah,
like
why
it's
not?
for the money.
Did
But
you do a program like?
I considered it, but this goes into the next step is when I was shopping for my loans, their terms had the interest rate for the loan a lot higher than the loan that the bank was giving me.
What?
And the bank was actually willing to, I found a really great program through my bank,
Right.
or the bank that I went with. It's not like the bank that I usually bank with.
Like a bank or like a credit union?
I went with a bank,
Okay.
but credit unions usually have very good rates also.
All right.
Your interest rate is huge in terms of how much your mortgage is going to be.
Right.
And honestly, it can make or break the difference between you being approved for a loan and not being approved, and for your mortgage being affordable, because that interest is part of your monthly mortgage payment. So you have to consider like how high it is.
Right.
So I think if I went with the first time home buyer program, and you have to crunch the numbers to do the math for yourself. Again, financial planner. So this is just how my mind worked.
Right.
I was like, if I take this program and their interest rate was like 4.25%,
Okay.
right? Which doesn't sound bad, especially for right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're willing to give me like $10,000 to go towards my down payment.
Okay.
Bomb. But if I go with the bank, my interest rate was 3.75%. So I'm like,
That's a
okay,
big difference.
how long will it take me to have paid that $10,000 if I go with the lower interest rate. And I was like, I would have spent that $10,000, or I would have paid off that $10,000 in less than the 30-year term of the loan. So going with the $10,000 now, but the higher interest rate in the long run would have cost me more.
Right. So it's like the free money wasn't worth the difference in the interest rate.
In my case, but that's also because I had a really strong credit score. I had all my ducks in a row. I had a good income, so they could give me a really good rate. Like, I remember going to my closing, and my attorney looked at my loan paperwork, and he was like, "Oh, you got real good credit," because you don't see the rate was really good for the time,
right?
And right now, I think they're talking about rates might be going down again, but you want to pay attention. Like, whenever you hear that on the news, interest rates are going up, in your head, you're probably thinking that shit don't matter to me. But if you're looking to buy a home, you do want to pay attention to that.
Right.
Because that's going to affect how much money you're going to end up spending.
So that interest rate you're talking about is from the Fed, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So they set that rate.
So that it's not just homes, right? That's homes and cars and shit
all
like
loans.
that? Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that you want to take into consideration. So I definitely like the first-time homebuyer programs. They are super helpful, but you want to make sure that it's actually the best thing for you financially. Right. So although I would have loved to have not paid that extra $10,000 out of my own pocket, it would have been amazing.
Right.
But I'm like, in the long run, if it's going to cost me more, it's not worth it to me.
Right.
So I'll take this L. If it's not an option for you to take that L, then go for it. Just plan accordingly.
Right.
And I think some people, just how you're talking about the rates changing and when they go up or down, I think kind of going in with your eyes wide open and saying, well, I do want to take advantage of this extra cash. It's not cash that I have on hand.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching the markets and potentially it's cyclical, right? Rates go up, rates come down. So I think also planning, either if you refinance or if refinancing is an option, there's ways to plan it so that
to make it work for you.
But you really have to do your research and know what you're doing.
Do not go into this with rose-colored glasses. That's how you end up getting screwed. So that's a really good point. You just want to be mindful of all of that. Again, because I knew that the rate the bank was giving me, and then they also were like, since if you're not going to go with this free money, then we can lower how much money you have to put down.
Oh, okay.
So they said it was 3% down instead of the 20% that they always encourage you to do. Mm-hmm. 3% down versus 20% down. Y'all do the math. That's just a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I could get a better rate, put less money down now. And then the other thing I did was to run the numbers again and to see how much, what the difference would be in my loan payment. So I'm like, okay, if I was able to put an extra $10,000 down, it honestly was going to save me $20 a month on my mortgage payment, my monthly mortgage payment.
Yeah, so it was better for you to keep the money, make more interest in it somewhere else,
save that money there, and
then you can always pay more on your principal too.
Exactly,
if you're trying to shorten your the life of the debt that you have in the mortgage and
pretty
stuff.
much. And that's what I did. They're like, yo, you only have to put 3% down. I'm like, I'll put a little bit more, as much as I feel comfortable affording, because I know the minimum is 3%, so I don't have to meet that 20% requirement. Right. So I know that down payment is something that holds a lot of people back from trying to buy their first home, because I don't have 20%. And if you're looking at a home that's $150,000, that's a lot of money to have saved. And a lot of us, especially if you're millennials, young adults, you don't have that much just stocked away. So look for these programs, because 3% down is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
And a lot of us can afford that. The other thing is, though, there's fees out the ass. There are so many fees.
Well, it's all of that stuff that you have to budget for too, because there's closing costs. They
tell you about the 20%. They tell you about the down payment, but they fail to tell you, you need to have fees. Those are actually usually baked in. Oh, okay. But then it's just you got to pay your attorney, because you should have a real estate attorney. So you have to pay for your attorney. You have to pay the closing costs. You have to have, I think it's 3 months of the mortgage payments in reserves in your account.
Damn, that sounds like a marriage, yo.
That cannot be touched.
Bruh.
So if they're saying that your mortgage payment is going to be $1,500, you need to have $4,500 just sitting in your account.
It's like a security deposit.
It is.
Yeah.
You're not paying anyone it. You just have to have
need
it
to have
there.
it, yeah.
Because the bank's like, if anything goes wrong, we need to know that you could at least cover these expenses. They don't tell you that straight up. So you're thinking, oh, I just need to have $10,000 in savings. I'm good. Like I could pay my $10,000 for my down payment. No.
No, it's more.
You need at least for most people, it's like at least $15K to go through the whole process.
Yeah.
And it can sound daunting, which is why, again, I go back to the first time home buyer programs at $10K. That shit's beautiful.
It's like,
because then it's like, oh, I only need
of what you would already need. And so it gives you a good cushion too, if you already have some in savings, but then with all of the other fees that you have to think about, it's like you would want.
All right. For those who are not following, all right. Basically, in a nutshell, for all the youngins who are not following, they probably just been like, oh, they talking about all kinds of percentages and shit like that. I don't know why they talking about this shit. Why can't they talk about some foolish shit like they usually do? So
because I want y'all to own money.
We all need to be owning.
So for those who are not following, basically, you need to set a good credit report from the three major bureaus: Equifax,
check that report,
TransUnion, and Experian. Get that good credit score. So basically, it'll lower the interest rate on your loans if you happen to go get loans, and look for free money wherever you can. Is that a good summary?
Yep, that covers it.
All right,
because you don't want to get screwed.
Yeah, pretty much. And don't go for them payday loans because that is
definitely
stupid.
do not.
You a dumb motherfucker if you do that shit,
Bruh.
If you don't pay them back, that's loan sharks. They love
like
300%.
It's like exactly
300%, 500%. Like, don't ever go for them. Don't look at Montel Williams on them commercials. Be like, oh, you can have a payday loan as much as $1,000. That $1,000 will turn into $3,000 quick
within a month. Like, don't do that shit.
Don't even do that shit.
That's the other thing. So depending on where you can pull money from, so a lot of us, our parents don't have that kind of money just sitting around, but it's always worth asking. Like, hey, Ma, can you spot me like 3 G's?
Wow.
No,
what you want that for?
I mean, and I think
most parents are actually excited to help their kids with their down payments or anything. It's just like, hey, I can't give you all of this money, but it never hurts to ask. Yeah, right. Especially if you have a good relationship with your parents.
Yeah.
Sometimes they be like, so what you doing with your money? You make all that money. I don't understand what you
sometimes that is the case.
Like, hey,
but then when you explain
here?
to them like, okay, but you didn't co-sign my student loan, so first of all, get out my face.
What you talking about?
Well, I'm asking you for it.
It's just like, I just need a little bit of help.
Yeah. And that's if you're comfortable doing that. But I would exhaust all resources to get extra cash before I do some kind of payday loan or anything like that. I don't encourage pulling money out of your 401k.
No.
But
they let you do it the first time.
For when it comes to if you're going to be using it for a down payment on a home,
your first home.
If you transfer that money from your life skill, I got y'all. If you transfer the money from your 401k into an IRA, you can put that money towards your down payment without having to pay that 10% penalty.
Yeah.
Bars. I got y'all.
Plus the state penalties, because they hit you with that too.
You'll still have to pay taxes on it, but you'll get away without having to pay penalties and all of that. If you do it the way I just said. If it's your money's in a 401k, roll it over into a traditional IRA, and you can use that money for your down payment of your home without having to pay a 10% penalty.
Don't do the traditional one. Do the Roth like I do.
No.
Because I like
Roth. You could do the Roth also.
Because you pay taxes already on it. So when you get that money back.
The thing is, if you're coming from your 401k, it's easier to just do it into a traditional because both of them are both of them use pre-tax money.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
So,
all right, no, I don't do that shit. Because then they charge you the taxes at the tax rate currently. I don't want to do that shit.
That's what I'm saying. You're going to pay taxes come tax time.
Yeah, you start out Roth. That's what I do.
But that's different, though. You're talking about just like
in your retirement
planning in general, which we are going to talk about too. But in this case, it's more like, hey, you have it. Like, sometimes people started working someplace, they put into a 401k,
Yeah.
and then sometimes it doesn't necessarily transfer to the next place that you want to work. So sometimes you have money that's sitting there, and unless you've already transferred it over, you may have the option to then just transfer that to the traditional IRA so that you can use it towards a down payment.
because you still don't have to pay taxes on that bitch.
Yeah.
And then you can take it out pre-tax, no problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like how you caught up like 5 minutes later,
Yeah.
but you got it. So,
But I'm pretty sure that's what everybody else is thinking. So this was good.
they're like, what? Yes. So, there's ways to get the money. Just you have to be smart about it if this is something that you really want to do. Now, notice I talked about all of the money stuff, the demographic stuff for what the hell are you going
Lena
through right
D,
now?
what are you doing?
I'm trying to fix the mic. Jeez.
Because not just the noise, it's your face also. You're like,
Yeah. All right.
I wish y'all could see her face. But notice everything else should be covered before you even start looking at houses. Before you start like, oh my God, this is it. This is my dream house. Before you start visiting houses, any of that, you want to make sure you have your money in order.
Well,
Pay them bills.
I would say,
All of
like,
them.
I think it's good to use online, like home searches, just
Yes.
as a way to understand the neighborhoods and understand the
Exactly.
price ranges.
Zillow.
But you do not want to be starting to talk with a real estate agent if you don't
Exactly.
have your finances in a row.
Because they
Exactly.
charge you money for that shit.
Well, it's
No, they
like
don't.
no, they don't charge you
They
for
don't
that, but
charge
it's
you
just like you're basically
you
you're
don't wanna get your
communicating.
heart set on a house.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't want but I'm also thinking about you don't want to be communicating to somebody that you have shit in order and then like come back and be like, oh, nah, chill, like I'm not ready for that.
Because the one thing that real estate agents will tell you that they hate is when they get a client, they see a place, they're like, okay, are you ready to put an offer in? Yeah, I'm ready to put an offer in, but I need to go apply for a loan first.
Oh, no.
And
Don't they give
then-
you like what they call it? Where like when you go into a bank and then they certify you, there's like that letter.
pre-qualify.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't, that's what I'm saying. Make sure you do all of that before you even start looking.
Oh.
I don't mean looking like looking online, but like actually visiting houses.
But don't real estate lenders actually ask you for that first?
Some of them do. A lot of them don't.
Oh.
That's
Okay.
yeah.
That's not
Clearly, not the smart
that's not
ones.
insurance on that money. Like
It's not
come
insurance
now.
on your time. Like you're
Yeah,
about to
for
spend
real.
time like going around and seeing people. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, let me go apply
We gotta
first."
go do some loan
Yeah.
shit. Like, nah, chill.
So
You know what?
you just want to. Maybe I'm anal, guys, but I just like to be very as prepared as possible before I do something like this. And this is huge. Like this is the biggest for most people. This is going to be the biggest purchase that they make. So you want to be as prepared as possible. So after you've done like looking at the first time home buyer programs, after you've done looking at the area that you want to be in, so you have an idea of what price range you want, then you go to the banks. Then you start shopping for loans. Another tip that I have is if I preferred not to apply to a bunch of different banks, I use their calculators. So if you go on most banks or credit unions websites on their mortgage page, they have calculators that you can use. You type in your income, you type in like a few other things, and it'll give you like a range. Like this is how much we think you'll qualify for. And then you can also look at their rates and all of that before you even qualify, before they run that credit check.
because every single time that you're applying, you're also getting your credit hit, right?
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
obviously you want to keep your credit score as high as possible
Exactly.
because then that's when you're going to get the best rates. But you have to be savvy about how you do the research and the planning because you could be shooting yourself in the foot if you didn't know that, hey, they're going to be hitting your credit every single time you're applying to different
So
places.
the fun tip that I have for you on that is if you do that, if you're applying at multiple banks and credit unions and all that, do it within 30 days. Because the way the system is set up is if it's all happening and it's from the same type of loan within 30 days, it'll only count as one inquiry. It's not going to count as multiple if it's within 30 days. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to check in March and then I'm going to check again in May, that's two separate ones.
Yeah.
But if you checked 3 of them like within a week period, then it only hits your credit score once.
Again,
so-
back to the planning.
Exactly. Like you
Like-
have to be as strategic as possible with this because I mean, loan companies know and the credit bureaus know, like people, they encourage you to shop for loans. They encourage
Yeah.
you not to take the first loan. So they can't hold it against you if you're shopping for loans as long as you're being smart about it. And this goes for auto loans, I don't think student loans, but auto loans and mortgages for sure. If you do it all within 30 days, then it only counts as one inquiry. So boom, life hack. I got y'all. I told you.
This is some good stuff. I hope people are taking notes.
No, but that was huge for me, because another thing that can happen, especially, remember I said that it doesn't always happen really quick. Like, you could put in an offer for a house, and then instead of that 30 to 45 days that they typically tell you that it takes for everything to happen, it could be months. Mine personally took like 5 months. It was ridiculous. It was obnoxious. But during that time, the bank had to continuously like requalify me, because that letter that they give you has an expiration date.
Oh, okay.
So if that expiration date passes and you haven't closed on a house, they have to run your credit again.
Jeez.
So now
insane.
if you had 5 inquiries at the beginning before you even like settled on a bank, and now the process is taking you longer and they have to run it 2 more times, your credit is fucked by then.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, you want to be as strategic and ready as possible for anything that might happen.
And what are some of those things that could extend like the
sellers being ain't shit?
Okay.
Sorry,
So it's
that was
really stuff
personal.
that's out of your control.
That was personal.
But it's like shit. Yeah. I mean, like, that's annoying as hell. And it's obviously impacting you personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything that you think after going through the process that could have helped you maybe potentially shorten that amount of time? Or do you feel like it's like, I don't know if it's like negotiating with like better negotiations with the owners, current owners, or like having asked more questions up front, or like just expecting the worst and planning for it? Like, what do you think would be like your life hack for that?
I'm not patting myself on the back, but I am. I did everything in my control to be ready for this. So I can show y'all emails like from my loan officer where she's like, this is the quickest anybody's ever gotten back to me, like with their information.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll come back to you and be like, oh, we also need you to send us your pay stubs from the last 3 months. And we need your bank statements. And we need your tax returns. Oh, shoot, I forgot we need this from you also. So that's why I started off in saying you want to have all of your financial documents in order.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they ask for it, like, I had everything to them by the end of the day every time they asked for it.
Because you just had it.
Because I had it ready. So that's something that can and usually does extend the process. Because it's just like, oh shit, I have to go find my, like, most of us get our check stubs, like it's
like
online
or something.
so you can pull that up.
Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, I went to H&R Block for my tax returns last year, and then the year before that I think I did TurboTax. So you have to go find all of that. So that can slow you down. Not having everything in order. So going back and forth with your negotiations, that can stretch it out also. Not having a good attorney can really screw you over, because after the real estate agent, so after that initial, okay, we're going to put in an offer, they accepted your offer,
Mm-hmm.
your real estate agent is essentially like, they're a background dancer now. It's all on your attorney. If your attorney's not on point and you're not on top of them also, that can take forever. Because I had one attorney where, y'all, this house that I bought was the second one that I went through the full process with. The first one, I was working with her for like 3 months and never saw her face.
What?
Because she was just never available anytime I was going into the office. She's like, oh, you can leave it with the secretary.
What?
You can leave the paperwork with the secretary. You can do this. And then it's just like, okay, but you told me that you were going to file this paperwork or send this out by last week. Oh yeah, I did. No, you didn't, because I don't have an email where you did it. So what are you talking about? And then it's just like, oh, well, their attorney didn't respond to me, and all this back and forth. And I remember I got into one argument with her where she was telling me that I didn't know how to check my email.
Excuse
And
me?
that's why I didn't have the email that she sent her. So I had to be like, I'm sorry. First of all, I'm younger than you, so I know how technology works. Let's not do this. Let's not play this game.
Right.
Secondly, how about you just tell me what email address you sent it to? Because I'm telling you, I do not have it. It's not in my spam. I've gotten every email you sent before. Why did I get this one?
Right.
She starts reading it to me, and I'm just like, it's because you have the wrong email address. So you're sending out my personal information to some random person.
Oh my God.
I'm hoping and praying to God that it was like just not an active email address. But I'm just like, if this is who you've been sending this
Holy
to, it's
shit.
not me. So you
Right.
have to be, you definitely want to be on top of it. And you want to have a good attorney.
That's just so reckless.
It's beyond reckless. And I'm just like, ma'am, I've been on all of this whole email chain. How you get my email wrong?
Yo.
Where you do that? Where they do that at?
I can't.
You should file something with the bar.
Oh, I definitely filed a complaint on her.
Oh, okay.
I was not playing. Like, she was the worst of the worst. So that's why I'm like, you want to do your research on your real estate agent and the attorney. Those two are the most important people besides your loan officer. My loan officer was great. My real estate agent, she was trash. But the last attorney that I had, phenomenal. Like,
So-
he went to bat for me. I had to fight with him also. That's the other thing. You have to be willing, especially if you're a woman that's doing this on your own. Do not be afraid to be that bitch. Because a lot of times we're like, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to see
But
my
they're
fuck
working
that.
for you.
Exactly.
Nah,
So a
fuck
lot
that.
of
They
times
work
we
for me.
hold it back. And it's just
Yeah.
like, I already sent an email like 2 days ago. They still haven't gotten back to me. I
like,
don't know
you
if I
should
should
be
wait.
Texting
Do
them,
not.
whatever, calling them. Like,
Don't-
hey, I'm following up on this shit. Like,
Don't harass them. But you know when there's a point. Like, I remember when I was in NABA, they told us you should be responding to emails within 24 hours. 72-hour response is pushing it. So that's what I always have in my head when somebody's working like for or with me. Just like, I'm going to give them 24 hours, 72 at the most. If I haven't heard from you, honestly, usually it's like 48. Like, if I haven't heard from you by then I'm going to run up on you. Be like, yo, it's good. Especially when you're
Right.
paying somebody. Like,
Yeah.
I'm giving you money to give me a service. Do not feel like you're inconveniencing people. Like, yes, you have to understand that they have other clients. Yes, they have other shit going on. You're not the only one, but you deserve a same level of quality as any of their other clients.
Exactly.
So,
And so I was going to ask you this. So like with these, like either the attorney or the real estate agent, and this may be a basic question, but I'm curious to hear the answer anyway. How did you do your research on the people that you decided to work with? Or how would you recommend that people do their research on them?
I know one.
go for it.
They black.
I'm not going to front that was one thing. Y'all know I'm very pro black.
Yeah.
I'm very pro people of color and women. If I can find a woman that's a person of color, that'll always be my first choice.
Okay.
So that was my criteria. But in terms of choosing, because there's tons of them,
She's the best one.
you look at the reviews. So I was on Zillow looking at their reviews.
So there's reviews on Zillow.
Yeah, so you
Okay.
can review agents. And also when you're looking up agents, you can see how many sales they've had recently, in what area, and in what price point. So if your budget is like $200K and you see an agent, it's like they have great reviews, but their lowest one was like $500,000, you can honestly expect that they might not respond to you. And they might not take you as seriously or give you the same quality of
because they have
work.
bigger clients. that
Exactly.
They're trying
So
to go
they're
after.
used to getting more. So they'll be like, oh, okay, this is pennies. Because when it comes down to their commission,
Yeah.
and it's a commission based job, so they might not take you as seriously. So look for somebody within that the range that you're looking for. Now, if they have a wide range where it's just like, they just sold a foreclosure and they sold a $500,000 house or $1 million home, then take that risk. But if it's just like, oh, this person only sells $1 million homes, I want them to help me find my $150,000 home, chill. Like, they'll probably not even respond to you. And then I was reaching out to people via Zillow. Like, there's a bunch of real estate websites, so you can look up different ones. That's just the one that I use the most. And a good agent is going to want to speak to you first. So interview them in the same way as if you're going for a job interview. Ask them about what their process is, how often they're available to like do a walkthrough with you, what kind of research, like just find out about them, and just also their personality. This is somebody that's helping you to find your home. You don't want somebody who you can't get along with. You don't want somebody that you can't have a conversation with, or who's going to like talk down to you or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
those are things.
I got a short temper. I'm choking somebody.
Exactly. So I remember like the agent that I ended up working with started off really great.
Your real estate agent,
Yeah,
right?
the real estate agent that I went with started off really good. But then like as we were going, her quality of service fell off so much. So there was one house that I wanted to see. It did get to the point where I was finding the houses myself. Like, she wasn't sending me houses or anything to look at. So it's like, I either want a house, like a single family home, or a townhouse. I was really leaning towards a townhouse because, again, I'm single. Like, who knows what's going to happen in my life? Like, a townhouse is a good look, right? Or a condo or something like that. So there's this one particular neighborhood in Newark called Society Hill. The townhouses there are phenomenal. Like, they're great. And it's like right in the middle, close to like public transit. There's a pool. Like, it's really nice, right? It's not like top notch, not gated community. Yeah. They claim to be a gated community. It's not. Like, I walked right up in that bitch. there was none of that. But it's still overall, it's very nice.
And it had like some of the other qualities that you were looking for
exactly.
in terms of location and transportation and stuff.
So I was the one that was having to say, oh, there's a new place in Society Hill. I'd like to go see it. And she'd be like, oh, I didn't notice that. Okay, yeah, sure, we can go see that. I'm like, bitch, you supposed to know this, not me. Like
why am I doing your job? And then you're still going to get the same commission.
Exactly. And then it got to one of the times that we went to see a place there. Again, I do not drive. Okay. So I think I took an Uber to the place. I got there and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I'm running late. I'm like, there's no reason why I should be getting here like 20 minutes before you. And I don't have a car to sit in, so I'm just standing here in the middle of this neighborhood looking crazy as hell. Yeah, they're probably going to call the cops. Right? She shows up. Can I tell y'all she showed up with her family?
Wait, what?
Her family, her son and her mother.
Why?
And then spent the entire time speaking to them and not me.
Oh.
Like,
you're fired.
When I tell y'all, like, it's so very important to interview the person who's going to be representing you.
You're fired.
Like, after that, I was just like, oh, I'm done with her.
I try not to mention this guy, but I'd have been like, Trump, you're fired. Fuck out of here.
And then you also have to be willing to let them go and start with somebody else.
Yeah.
But you have to pay attention because a lot of them will make you sign like an agreement when you first sign on with them.
What agreement?
Saying that if like there's a term that they have to find you a house, and if they don't find it within that time, then, you know, like this agreement is over. But if you go to somebody else
during that
time and you buy a home with them, they're still eligible for part of that commission. They're so
sneaky.
It's sneaky. You have to be on top of everything. Just realize everybody's trying to make a buck off of you.
Shit.
So you just can't slip up on shit like that.
But you got rid of this lady, right? Like, or was she the final person?
She was actually the final person.
Oh my gosh.
And I was very annoyed that I even paid her the commission, but I had gotten to the point where I was just like, I'm just going to do this shit myself.
Yeah, that's insane.
You don't want to have to do that, especially when you're paying somebody, but that is where I got to. And because I knew what I was doing, like I had done my research, so I felt capable to navigate a lot of stuff without her help. But there were a lot of points where it's like I felt very alone in the whole process because I'm like, there's nobody to answer my questions.
Yeah,
I'm over here on Google, and you don't want Google to be the thing that's answering some serious questions.
At this point, I might as well just do Google. Shit, if you got Zillow and all these fucking websites.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources, man. And then like the threads where other people are talking. There's a wealth of information there.
Okay.
So those are the things that I did. That's how I prepared for it. That's also part of my horror story in buying my first home. It was not all smooth sailing.
And I don't think you should ever expect it to be smooth sailing. So that's part of the reason why it's so important to plan. So I think you gave a whole bunch of really good tips. Like even I'm like taking notes in my head, like, hey, okay, now I have to watch out for this and for that. But I think the other theme too with this episode isn't just like, hey, this is the steps that you should be considering. But I think as being part of like that millennial group and always like necessarily like in the news, like I feel like it's like this generation's just like portrayed as like the worst because like
millennials aren't doing shit.
Exactly. It's like, oh, well, they're not saving enough. They're not buying enough homes. They're not doing enough of this. They're not doing enough of that. And I think it's a very annoying theme and also inaccurate theme that assumes that people that are in that age group don't necessarily care about getting their stuff in order.
Yeah.
And so I think the home ownership piece is one that is very empowering. I think another one that's also very empowering is like retirement planning.
Yes.
And so we won't spend a lot of time on it, but because we did talk about some kind of like retirement options like the Roth IRA or traditional IRA, also like bringing up the fact that you should also be planning for retirement as you're planning to buy a home.
Yes.
And so for people that maybe haven't been on top of their retirement planning as much, just wanted to put out a couple of tidbits because there was this really, I think, useful article that was kind of targeted towards millennials, but it wasn't the doom and gloom of like all of the other articles that you
Millennials
see.
will retire at age 80. Fuck you.
Which is like, yeah, not chill. But we'll share the article link. It's basically like, you know, how much Americans in their 40s have in their 401ks. And it's a really good, I think, just walkthrough of like, hey, this is like what you should have in your 401k depending on like your age, like what your age is, and then how much you should be thinking about putting aside for retirement based on what you make. And so a couple of highlights, and we will share this too, is like if you're in that 30 to 39 age group, like you should be having at least like, you know, 42,000 in your 401k by that point. And there's ways for you to necessarily not just feel that the burden is like on your salary alone, like depending on like who you work for, you should be thinking about like looking at, hey, does your company match your 401k contribution and maxing out however much they contribute. So like, let's say if they match up to like, let's say 6% of your contribution and you're only putting in 3% of your income into the 401k, then you're sort of leaving money on the table.
Leaving a lot of money on the table.
Because they would be matching you up to that 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're looking at that. And then also like going back to like the budgeting piece, it's great if you're putting money into your 401k, but I also highly recommend putting in money in your savings as well so that you have liquid funds as well as what you have in your 401k. Because again, like what's in your 401k is restricted in terms of like when you can access it. And then if you do need to access it early, then you have to sometimes pay a penalty on it, which nobody wants to do because you're just paying penalties on your own money for no reason. And so when you think about like, well, how much should I really be saving for retirement? Like Fidelity recommends that it's like usually 15% of your salary that you're saving towards retirement.
So quick interjection on that. A lot of people think, oh, I need to set aside like 15% when they're allocating it. That 15% would include whatever your company is matching. So if you're doing like one strategy that I always recommend and use personally is if I'm doing like 7%. So my company is matching up to 6%. And then the rest of that, I think I have another 3% going into a Roth, which Wesley was talking about earlier.
Right.
So you want to have more than one retirement account.
Right.
And not feel like, oh, I'm only putting in like 8%. So I'm not meeting up to that. If your company's matching you, then you are. If you have money somewhere else or in other kinds of savings account, then that counts also. It's not just 15% going into one particular account.
Right.
So it's 15% overall.
No, and I think that's a good call out. But I think it's also important to think about like the portfolio of where your retirement savings is going. Because again, it's like the access to it, right? So like you never know what's going to happen. And like with like the trends in the economy or even like trends like on the job market, like some people are working longer than what the retirement age is just because like the economy has like taken a shit on everything. And so I think it is important to think about like, well, if you split that up between like your traditional 401k, my point of view is that you should also be aggressive about saving your own pot of money that's not necessarily going into like a 401k. Maybe it's just going into like a high yield savings account.
Yeah.
Because of especially what's happened in the markets and what happened like during the recession. It's like people had stuff in their 401ks, but because the markets tanked, that's literally all of their retirement savings was just in a 401k. And so,
which is crazy.
Yes. So
speaking from a financial advisor, guys, please diversify your accounts.
Yes.
Do not put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, like Wu-Tang Clan, diversify your bonds.
All right. Just don't have all of your money sitting in one place, or in like don't invest all of your money in one stock. Don't invest all of your money like with one bank.
Yeah.
Especially now, there are so many online ones that are offering really competitive rates. Or
I like Vanguard
investment accounts. I think I just opened an account with Wealthfront. Yeah, Wealthfront is their name. I wonder if they have like some kind of referral bonus thing, so I could get some of that money.
I don't know.
Yeah, you should look.
I like Vanguard's done me pretty good, so I say use Vanguard.
But there's just so many options, and just to keep going with that is you want to have your retirement savings, but, and Lena D touched on this, you also want to have an emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
That's imperative. You can't always pull the money out of your 401k, especially if you're still working there. Like some places will let you take a loan, but you don't want to have to do that. This should always be your last resort. So you want to have money in a savings account. It might not be a high yield savings account because a lot of them, you need like at least 10K or something to open a high yield one. Unless you go with Wealthfront because their rates are pretty good right now. And I think you only need
do you know what your rate is?
It's like 2.5% or something.
Yeah,
it's pretty high.
American Express has a really good savings account too. That's about around like 225 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think also, what's the name of that new service that Goldman Sachs has opened? Because like they also have like a really good savings account.
I don't know. They didn't know they had one.
Let me look it up because for whatever reason it's slipping my mind right now.
Marcus?
Yes, Marcus. So Marcus is another one to look at too, but
American Express is 2.10 annual percentage yield.
Nice. Let me see what the wealth. Either way, there's tons of options, but for your emergency fund, we keep sidetracking off of that. For your emergency fund, you want to have at least 3 months of your regular expenses in your emergency fund. Mm-hmm. So the recommendation is you start with your emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have saved up enough money there before you start venturing out into saving anywhere else.
Right.
Because again, your emergency fund, you can access that. That's part of your bank account. You could pull that money out at any time. If you lose your job, you have 3 months of savings. If you're counting on your 401k, if you lose your job,
that's not
you can't pull that out.
No.
Like
that's not how it works.
No. So you want to have that emergency fund set up first.
Yeah.
And then look at, if you still have some extra money and you've paid off your debt, because that's the key. You don't want to be like, oh, I have like $12,000 in savings, but I also have $15,000 in debt. That's not helpful at all.
No, it's not. And if you invest in stuff, invest in things that people need, like boxes, detergent. Seriously, what? Yeah, you look at me all crazy, but I'm just saying.
I'm not even looking at you. That's the funny part. I'm literally not looking at him.
People need.
Literally not looking at you.
People need.
Can't we acknowledge that I'm not even looking at you though?
No. Anyway, people need boxes.
Where am I looking? Am I looking at Wesley?
Nope, you're looking at
not
me.
even
Cut my
close.
Anyway, people need certain things: boxes, soap, fucking water.
Nah, you're right.
Shit like that.
It's basically like your
Stable
staple
stuff.
Yeah.
stuff that you
Don't invest in, like,
secure if you invest in it.
Don't
If you
be
put
like
your
me
money there.
invest in like Mary Jane and shit like that.
Like your
Although
short-term investments.
it is making me a lot of money, but that's not
when you
the
get
point.
to that point though, that's when you should
Pull
have
your
a
money
whole ass strategy. We're talking about like just getting you
starting
set up
out, yeah.
and just starting off. So you don't want to be like, oh,
Good.
let me open this Robinhood account or let me open up all of these different accounts. No, you want to start off very simple and at a place where it's just like, if anything goes wrong, I'm covered. And they say this all the time. Most Americans are one financial crisis away from bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Most Americans, like if their fucking car breaks down, for a lot of Americans, they will not be able to cover that cost and still be okay.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Don't invest in no damn cryptocurrency. Got out of here.
Yeah, you missed that. You missed that boat. Like
it's
Let
too
it go.
late for that.
Got out of here. Some bullshit.
But we want you guys to know, to understand, and
Now fuck
Just
that.
to-
Invest in us, Bold and Body. Donate to our fund. Fuck out of here.
wait.
Sorry.
Wait, how did we
There's
get
no
there?
return on that. So
There's a huge return on that. You get all
So-
this clean, free advice.
if you got questions about any
I
of
mean,
this,
we,
though, you
we
can
are
definitely
giving
hit me up.
value, but
It's clean.
it's like
I'm just saying, they're not making
the type
money.
of
They're not making money
investments
back.
that we're talking about right now.
We're talking about making your money work for you.
Yes, but I do think that
What can Brown do for you?
we're talking about empowering
My brown?
our
Look at Maddie
people,
and Zilph again.
empowering our listeners. So, I mean, I think that is valuable in itself.
Yeah.
But like I said,
Ooh, Wealthfront is at 2.51% APY. Y'all need to get this now because it's a special offer. Like, it's not going to stay this high.
that's pretty good.
Because I feel like City, Chase, the rest of them banks are like 0.1%.
Yeah, they're like nothing. It's like,
Like-
why even give you my money?
at all.
I'm going to give it to somebody
So,
else.
and I'm not going to front. I have my emergency fund with them because I could pull it out easily.
Yeah.
And then I have this account that I put a little bit towards. So that's the strategy that you want to have. You want to have your emergency fund set up first. Then you make sure that you're maxing out your retirement as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't afford to put aside 6, 7, 8%, don't worry about that.
Just plan for
Like,
it. Like,
if you can though, and you're not, what's wrong with you? But if you can, it's like at this point in time, I want to focus on paying off this debt. So I'm only going to put 3% towards my retirement. Do that until you've like met whatever goal you set for yourself, and then start investing that or saving that 7, 8%, whatever. But speak to a financial advisor if you're not sure. Figure this out if you feel like you can do it for yourself, and just ask questions. Go online, do the research. Like, there's tons of resources for all of this, for retirement planning, for home buying, for starting your own business, all of that. So
LegalZoom.com.
we're not for
you're
real,
doing
though,
all
I
these
would.
plugs.
I wish they were sponsoring us, because we just talked up a lot of places.
Yeah, we did.
But we do this for you. Like, we want people to know, to understand, and we're constantly trying to grind and hustle and like get more money. But if you're not making your own money work for you as it is, then you're already fucking up.
Yeah. And
For
I think
real.
it's just important to get your coins straight. So
Yes.
Yep.
do it.
With that being said, we just gave you DJ Khaled's keys to success. That's not DJ Khaled's keys to success. It's our keys to success. Financial success.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Peace out, Girl Scouts.
It's been real. Later,
Yes,
Gators.
it is. Well, thanks for joining us for this season. We hope that you found this helpful, and stay tuned for more from us.
And get us some goddamn advertisers on this bitch.
Oh, wow. I don't think that's how that works, but okay.
That's how we ended it. We need people to come on here and be like, yo, Bold and Body supports our shit, blah, 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 blah. So if you can, tell y'all friends and then tell their friends of friends, listen
tell
to
your
our
friends
shit.
to tell my friends.
And we
and
can
we
be
can be
friends.
friends.
Tell them to listen to our
And
stuff.
we can do this every week. We can't do it every week.
We
got
can't really do
jobs.
this every week.
Nope.
Because we
Just
don't,
bi-weekly on
We got shit
Wednesdays.
to do.
we don't get paid like that on the podcast to be doing
We
this.
don't get paid, period.
Yeah, I was trying to like
It's
plug
volunteer
it a
work.
little bit, like, but get us some sponsors, all that good stuff.
Well, no,
'Cause
we
good
have
money.
to get
I
our
think
own
we have to get
sponsors.
our
We're just
own
asking you to
sponsors.
tell your friends to
Tell
listen
your
to
friends
our
and
podcast.
they friends and then they friends, like 6 Degrees Separation, like that Will Smith movie.
I'm going to say please because that was
Please.
mad aggressive.
Yeah,
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends,
Please.
please tell them.
We need help.
We just want more listeners. That's
We
all.
just want some more listeners, and then that can grow into more listeners. Maddie over here laughing like a motherfucker.
I don't know why, but you saying we need help made me think about that video where that woman's like, she needs some milk.
She needs some milk.
I don't know why that popped in my head.
I don't know why. I gotta plug that in now.
You definitely have to. Like, it's so random. It had nothing to do with nothing.
Yeah.
But that's.
He needs some milk.
I'm sorry. We gotta go.
We gotta go. All
Thanks
right.
for joining us for
Thanks for
season
joining us,
2 of
season
Bold
2.
and Body.
Bye.